Today we're going to learn how to make a waterfall chart in Veusz. A waterfall chart is a way to show flow between different values. And so if you have something where you have quantitative values coming in different pieces into a whole or from a whole into other different parts, you might use a waterfall chart to show this. And so we're going to show how to do that today. For this, I thought it might be interesting to use the Penn State 2022-2023 academic budget, and so that is what we're looking at here. If we scroll down, we'll see the overview of this budget, and if we keep scrolling, we can see that this budget is made up of revenue or income, and then expenditures or expenses. And this is broken up by category. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and I have translated this into a Excel file that I've saved as a CSV, where I have each category name and the income and expenditures. It's a little different maybe from what you would see here, especially in the revenue section, where I've grouped things together just slightly differently than they have here. And of course, if you're interested in what each one of these is, you can go down and you can read about what each of the different parts are. Okay, but now we have the data, so let's go ahead and plot it. If I see this data here, I basically have 7 different incomes and 8 different expenditures. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a chart on here in Veusz that looks like a waterfall chart, or is a waterfall chart. And so let's go ahead and get started. The way that I want to make this, and if I go ahead and zoom to page to make this big, is I want to have lines that basically go up and over and up and over and up and over as I add each new categorical value. And then maybe as we spend our income, we'll come down and down and down. And so there's a couple different ways that one could envision doing this, but I think actually the simplest way, and one that will demonstrate some of the capabilities of Veusz, is to use lines. So rather than having bars, I want to draw a line. Each one that starts at a particular place goes up and over, starts up and over, starts up and over. So to do this, let's think about what that might look like in terms of this data. So in the data, what we have right now is actual expenditures and actual incomes. But what we really sort of want is a running total of each one of these. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and take these columns and move them over a little bit so I have some room to think through how I want to have this. So let's say maybe what I want is initial income, and you'll see that I have used an underscore because I want to have this be all one word. That's going to be important later for us. And we're going to start at 0. And then I'm going to have the running income, again, all one word. And to make my life easy and keep me a little bit more sane, I'm going to keep the capitalization the same. This running income would basically be the initial income plus the income that we have just gained. And then the initial income for the next bar, where we start when we add the next category, is going to be where we ended here at the running income. And so this is going to be equal to here, but then this is still the same, where now I have the initial income plus whatever we just happened to add. And so what I can do is I can propagate this down, and then I can take this and I can propagate it down. And what you'll see is that now I start here, I add in a value, then I start at that same value, add in the next value, start at that value, add in the next value, all the way down. In our waterfall chart then, what we basically have at this point is the ability to go up, 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 up. But of course what we want to do is be able to go up and then over and draw the next one, and go over and draw the next one. So we have the Y data, we don't have the X data. So let's create some X data. Let's call this X1. Let's place these at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, then we can plot these bars that go up 1, up 2. The first bar will start here at 0, go to $327 million. Then the next one will start at position 2, go from $327 million to 2,500 $539 million, and so on. So let's go ahead and save this. We will go back then to the views file. We will refresh the data so that we now have all of the new data that we have just put in. Now what we're going to do is, in this graph, we're not going to use any of the widgets we've used so far to plot data. Instead, we're going to actually just use this add line function. Under the add line function, we need to make a few changes. We're not going to have length angle. What would happen here is that you would tell it where to start, how long to draw a line, and what angle to draw the line at. But we're going to go point to point. So we're going to tell it the starting and ending points of this line, and we're going to do it with respect to the axes. So the position mode needs to be axes. Our starting position is going to be x1, and our y position that we start at is going to be the initial income. The ending x value is also going to be x1, and then the y position that we end at is going to be the running income total. Now we can't see anything yet because we're plotting this from 0 to 1 on the y and 0 to 1 on the x. But on the x, we saw that we had values that ran from 1 to 7. So let's make sure we can see them all. Let's go from 0 to 8. There's actually the first line that we're interested in. We can't see it because this runs too high. If we go back to the data, what we can see is that our final value is about 3,000. And so I'm going to go back and I'm going to set the y limit to be 3,000. So 3,000. And let's make sure that we start at 0. And now I have these lines. There's the first rising income, the second rising income, the third rising income, the fourth, the fifth, and so on. There's more, but you can see they're just so small they're hard to see. Right here, there's a tiny little line, but it actually is too small to really resolve. That's okay. One thing that is interesting here is that we have a short line, a long line, a shorter, a little bit bigger. I think that same as when we talked about how to order things like pie charts and bar charts, one of the ways it makes sense is to go in order of, let's say, decreasing size. So if I'd like to do that, I can just go back into the Excel data and I can use now the sort function on this income here. And I could say I would like to go to the data, I would like to sort, my list has headers, I'm going to sort this by income, so I want to be income, I want to go largest to smallest. There we go. Now if I go ahead and save this, go back and go to views and refresh, you'll see that I have these bars that have the largest bar, then the next bar, then the next bar, and so on. All right, so we're starting to get there. Something else that can look nice is to have a connection between this bar and that bar. And oftentimes this is done by drawing like a thin line or a dotted line or something like that. And how this would look is that I would have a line that needs to be at the final value of this bar and at the position of this bar, and then travel to the final value of this first bar, but the position of the second bar. If I go back to my data, I already have the final positions. That's this running income. And I have the initial position. What I don't have is something that would tell me where the next position is. So let's go x2, and basically all this is where we were plus 1. The next bar is 1 unit away. So let's go ahead and propagate that down. Now I have x2. I can go in to views. I can refresh so that I have access to it. And now I will copy this line and I will go in and I will say the x value is x1. That's where we start. That's good. What we want is actually the running income as the first value. My next x2 is going to be the next bar, or the final ending x value. So I'll say x2, and then it also ends at running income. And so now you see I do have this sort of stepped function where I've gone up and over and up and over. But now I have the ability, if I would like, to change the behavior of each of these individually. And so now I can go to the formatting, I can go to the line, and I could say I would like this to be a dotted line. Maybe I'd even like it to be like a dotted line where there's lots of little dots, and maybe this needs to be 0.5 points so that they're small and dotted. I actually don't quite like the look of this, so let's go to that dotted line. I can tell the difference between these two, but I think this first line maybe would look better if it was a little bit thicker. So let's try what it looks like at 10 points. And now you can see I have these bars over, up, over, up, over, up. I actually think that looks pretty nice. And so let's go ahead and use that. Another thing that we might want to do is, because this is income, it might be nice if we had a color that made us think of income, like green. And then I can do the same for this line. I could have this line be green as well. So now I have up, dotted, up, over, and I have all of the things that give us a rise in income. Now a waterfall plot, this is one where we've just broken this up, but it might be nice then to break it up coming down. And if we wanted to do that, then simply all we would do is go back and repeat this process for our expenditures. So let's go ahead and just copy this and paste it over. Then we have these expenditures that we're interested in. We kind of know that maybe we want to go largest to smallest, so let's go ahead and just take care of that right now. Let's sort this by expenditure. I want to go largest to smallest. Okay. Then I would like to have initial expenditure. I want this to be just one word. We haven't got to why that is the case yet, but it will be what we want to have. And then running expenditure. All right. We're going to need to have new x values, so let's call this x3 and x4. We can start at 8 if we want, might as well. So how about 8, 9, 10, and so on. We'll have an initial expenditure that, in this case, we're going to be subtracting. So we actually want this first data point to be at the maximum. So I'm going to say this is actually equal to the total that we had for the income. And then my running expenditures is going to be equal to what I had here, subtracting what we spent. And so now we're going to decrease the total value. Where the next bar starts is where we ended here. And now we're in a position where I can just propagate this down. I can propagate this down. I can take this and continue the pattern. And then we also want to move these bars over one at a time. And so it's going to be this plus 1. And now we have everything set up to add in the expenditures if we would like. So we'll go ahead and save that. We'll go back to the views file. We'll refresh so that we've brought in the new expenditure information. We'll close this. We need bars, the thick bars. This is going to now be initial expenditure and running expenditure. And then we need to have this at position X3 and position X4. And now I have new, X3 and X3, my apologies. Now we have new bars. We can't quite see them all, however, and that's because our X range is too small. If we go back and look, we can see in our data that the farthest we're ever going to have to go is out to 16. And so let's just go back to the X and say, let's run this to 17. And now we can see the rise and the fall. We don't yet have the connection between these new bars. And of course, these are expenditures. They are not income. So maybe we also want to change the color. So let's go back to this line and say, how about dark red? And now you can see I have a rise and a fall, different colors. This, let's add the dashed lines. The dashed lines are now going to be involving our running expenditure and our running expenditure. And we want to go from X3 to X4. And now I have dotted lines that connect these. I also want them to be dark red. You can see that the bars are pretty wide and we don't really get to see the dashed lines anymore. And so an easy way to fix that is to go back here and say, rather than 10 point, maybe these are 5 point. And then same here. Rather than 10 point, maybe 5 point. There we go. Now we have a nice waterfall up and down. What we don't really have at this point, however, is an understanding of what each one of these categories is. And so it might be nice to label them. So let's go ahead and do that next. In order to label the category, let's just go ahead and create a label. We know how to do that. I can say that the labels that I want to put in are the income name. That's what I would like to list, right? I have, if I look at this data, a name associated with each one of these. And then I actually have a position associated with each one of them. I could give it the initial income position and the X1, where the bars are if I want. So let's just go ahead and do that. I can say I would like these to be X position at X1 and Y position at the initial income. I can't see them because I also need to have the position mode be set to the axes. And now you can see I have all these labels. The labels overlap. It's not really what we want. It's a little messy, but we can fix that. I think the first thing that we can fix, and I guess what I should point out, is that we've now automatically labeled each one of these exactly where we want them to be. We've seen this before, but it's worth pointing out that we're reading this just directly off of the data, and it's handling where it puts each one of these for us. That's quite nice. Anyway, I think to solve this alignment problem, let's just go in and say the horizontal alignment, we want it to be on the right. That flips everything over to the other side. I would like the vertical alignment to be center. And then I don't really like that this is at the bottom and this is at the bottom of that, and I can't really tell what goes with what. Wouldn't it be nice if this was exactly in the middle of the bar? So let's go ahead and see how we might do that. If I wanted to think about putting this in the middle of the bar, if I think about what this means from the data perspective, the middle of the bar is actually just the average of these two values, the initial income and the running income. And Veusz is smart enough that it can do math on these things. And so what I could do is I could say take the initial income, add in the running income. They need to be one word, which is why we have this underscore. This is where this becomes important, and then divide by 2. That's how I calculate an average. And then it will put these at that average position. You can see that the label overlaps with the bar. I also don't like that, but that's easy enough. I could say that rather than putting this at X1, maybe shift it over by half. Looks pretty all right. This runs off the page, so what we need to do is figure out what kind of margin to have. This is a problem that's associated with the graph widget. So under formatting, I can see the left margin. I can change this. Let's see what 5 centimeters looks like. It's too much. How about 3? Yeah, we're getting there. I might even get away with 2.5. Let's find out. Everything now fits on the left-hand side. That's quite good. So what else might I need in order to see this? Well, this needs to be stretched out more. And so what I might do is actually just make the page much taller. How about a 6-inch page? It doesn't quite make it tall enough. How about a 10-inch page? Now we're getting to the point where it's getting close. 12 inches. All right, so this is not ideal, but maybe we'll solve it at the very end. For right now, let's just think about the fact that I have a line that's in my way. So let's go to View, Zoom to Page. You can see I now have this very, very tall page. It's hard to read because I have axes in the way. I actually don't think we even need the axes at all, so I'm just going to highlight them both and hide. I think that when I think about this label, I don't want it to be black. I would like the text to be the same color as the bars for consistency. So let's just make them green. Now I have all these costs up here. Let's go ahead and do the same for the expenditures. So I just take the same idea. This is now going to be the expenditure name. I need the initial expenditure. And we need to make sure that initial expenditure, running expenditure, okay, that we're going to spell these right. spell these right, running expenditure. All right, they are in the wrong place, of course. Now we need this to be actually at X3, and we'd like to shift it maybe to the right, and we would like to have this be, instead of aligned on the right, aligned on the left. We would like the color to be the same color that we have for the bars, and now I need to adjust the margin again so that I can see everything. And so let's make the right margin. Let's start at 5 centimeters. That's too big again. 4 centimeters, 3 centimeters. That is getting a little tight. And in fact, I guess I can see that I actually did cut off some of these up here. So let's go back to 3 centimeters. It actually needs to be 3.5. This looks comically narrow. And so let's just go back again and make the page wider. So how about 6 inches instead? Or if we wanted to make something that was a full page, if we think about the fact that most pages are 8.5 by 11, I would actually, if I included 1-inch margins, be able to make something that is 6 inches by 9 inches. And then I can go to the graph. I can say that I don't really need a top or a bottom margin. So let's go ahead and make these both small. Maybe I do want a title, and so I would need something up here at the top. So let's make the top 0.5. Let's add a label to make this the title of the chart. And what do we want it to say? How about Penn State has a, and let's give it the total amount. So if I look at the total amount, it's about 2.9, or if we want to round, $3 billion budget. So how about we actually just include it all, 2.95, and then $million, or this is billion dollar budget. Let's go ahead and put it at the top here. To me, maybe I would want this to be actually bigger. So let's make it 10 point, and maybe a different style as well. Oh, this Rockwell might look kind of fun. And I would like the number to stand out. So let's call this text boldface. That's the LaTeX command for this. And hit enter, and now you'll see that I have a bold number for the 2.9 billion. And maybe we would move this such that it's centered over the height of this column. And so now we have something where we have a waterfall that comes up and over and up and over. We've labeled all the categories. I still have a problem here that I would like to solve. And then I come down, everything's labeled, that looks good. I have a total number given, which means I don't really need these axes anymore because this is just the whole that is part of the $2.9 billion. And to me, other than this small problem here with the labels, then it looks all right. So if I wanted to solve this last problem with the labels, how would I do it? I would go back. I would just delete the one that's a problem. Let's just give it a space. Save that. That was sales and services. And so if I refresh this, that will disappear. I don't have that problem anymore. I'll add a new label that says sales and services. And then I can place this wherever I would like it to be. I need to put that inside the graph. I could put it up here at the top. That means probably I need to have an even larger margin than I have currently. So let's go to the top and let's just make it 1 centimeter so that I have plenty of room to play with. Let's go ahead and move this up. Let's move it to 1.01. Yeah, that looks pretty good. The sales and services is actually in a pretty nice spot already. Move it over just a little bit. Make it a color that is the color of everything else. And to me, yeah, this looks all right. Now I have something that I could put onto an entire page and would look good. So let's just go ahead and export it. I click on the export button and then give it a place to save. Save it as a 300 dpi PNG, and I think that looks all right. This is the image that we started with at the beginning of this talk. Okay, and so that's all. Hopefully you've enjoyed learning how to make a waterfall plot. This one is more involved, but it also illustrated many of the powerful features of Veusz. Not only can you now make waterfall plots for data where that is useful, but you can use the lines and the labeling in a more powerful way, understanding how Veusz looks at them inside the data. With that, go out and have fun making charts.